The controversialness of the claims about Vice President Harris's identity will probably make the most headlines. But I think it's important to note that his claims on that subject are also false. You know, he said that Vice President Harris has only turned black a couple years ago, and before that, she was only promoting her Indian heritage. That is just not true.
At one point, it seemed like people were some were laughing. Then they were clearly upset. How did the audience receive him? And did that sort of shift in those first few minutes?
Yeah, you are right. They were very responsive to first his attacks, but there were also some, laughs throughout the course of the 35 minutes. There were audible gasps at one point, especially when he talked about Vice President Kamala Harris not being black, which was, I think, to a room full of black journalists was sort of off-putting, but also like confusing as well, when she has always presented herself as black. But it was very interesting. The crowd was very responsive.
Yes, I mean, it was. And because at one point I did hear some laughter.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So you got to follow up on the story of the day, probably the story of the week, to be quite honest with you, which is President Trump walking into the lion's den of the National Association of Black Journalists and dragging his cojones all over these woke black female journalists who tried to ambush him at this conference, okay? It was an ambush, and Trump went in and absolutely wrecked. And of course, the mainstream liberal media, they're losing their mind over this. And why are they losing their minds over this? Well, mainly because Trump just showed that the so-called all-powerful black woman, right, that's supposed to be holding Trump accountable, that Trump is afraid of, he's scared of, which is the narrative that they push out there. Not true, right? Trump is not afraid of the so-called black woman. In fact, Trump has more cojones than a vast majority of Republicans to actually stand up to the nonsense and to say out loud what everybody's thinking, including black people. Everybody's thinking, which is that Kamala Harris is fake because she switches her identities based off whatever situation she is in a way that is most beneficial to her, okay? And again, this calls into question the authenticity of somebody like Kamala Harris, who went from curry to collard greens. Now, I'm not entirely sure how. It doesn't really make sense to me how all of a sudden Kamala Harris became this strong black woman, but CNN is out here now fact-checking Trump like we knew they would and trying to essentially prove that Kamala Harris has always been black. Okay, she's always identified as black. She's always embraced her blackness, except just 4 or 5 years ago, CNN didn't seem to agree with that.
My mother, who raised me and my sister, was a proud woman. She was a brown woman. She was a woman with a heavy accent.
And her mother, Shamla Gopalan, was also the biggest influence in Kamala Harris's life.
The answer is absolutely yes, Joe.
After the big announcement, Harris's sister wrote in a Twitter post, "You can't know who Kamala Harris is without knowing who our mother was." In 1958, a precocious 19-year-old Indian, Gopalan traveled thousands of miles from her home and family to pursue a doctorate in nutrition and endocrinology in America. She soon became an active civil rights crusader while studying at UC Berkeley.
But once she went there, she almost felt free. And she took part in politics. She used to bring a whole series of literature, leftist literature from Karl Popper's, he was a great philosopher.
In her book, Harris says, "There is no title or honor on earth I'll treasure more than to say I am Shamla Gopalan Harris's daughter." Harris's visits to India with her mother kept her connected to her roots. Her grandfather, who had strong views on humanitarian issues, worked closely with officials to reallocate refugees. Their conversations had a strong influence on her.
Those walks along the beach in India really planted something in my mind and created a commitment in me before I even realized it that has led me to where I am today.
Harris's maternal uncle, Gopalan Balachandran, who lives in Delhi, tells us how the senator turns to her amma, which means mother in Tamil, for guidance even after her death.
I don't have to tell her, make your mother proud. She said, what are you telling me? Everything that I do, I ask myself, would Amma approve of this?
Kamala in Hindi means lotus flower and is an important symbol in Indian culture, rooted deep in the bottom of the river. Very similar to Harris's Indian identity, which she wears on her sleeve. There's no doubt that the primary source of learning for Senator Harris was from her mother's experiences and the conversations that she had with her maternal grandfather when she visited India, which was very often accompanying her mother, or when the grandparents would visit them in America. Back to you, Rosemary.
Wow. So CNN, the same network that's trying to fact check Trump on him saying that, hey, I didn't even know that Kamala Harris was black until she decided to run for president. All of a sudden, she turned black. CNN, in their own little profile of Kamala Harris, they didn't mention anything about Kamala Harris being so proud to be black. Seems to me like her experience growing up, she grew up as an Indian girl. She didn't seem to have the stereotypical black experience, okay? I'm just saying, this is what I'm saying. I'm not entirely sure how all of a sudden she became this strong black woman. And again, why is this important? Now, I know a lot of you guys are annoyed by these conversations, and trust me, I'm annoyed by these conversations, guys. But I told you on the first day that the mainstream liberal media and Kamala Harris, the Democrats, they were going to make this race about identity politics. This race has become a referendum on identity politics. I don't like it. I know a lot of people don't like it, but the unfortunate reality is that there's nothing that we can do about it. And if this is what they want to make the race about, if they want to die on this hill, okay, fine. Trump gave them the smoke that they were looking for. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, this is not a conversation that is avoidable. So at some point, you got to take it on. And Trump, being a white male, saying something like that is a pivotal moment in politics. Because quite honestly, guys, this is something that I want to see more from white men, okay? If Democrats can talk directly to white men and tell them what they should and should be doing, you know what? Why is it that we can't have a conversation about what conservative white men should be standing up against since the left's agenda is mainly an anti-white male agenda? And I've asked this question a lot on my channel lately, and I'm halfway joking, but I'm also very serious because I do believe that the undermining of the white man in this country is a part of the reason for this country's downfall. And I say that in all seriousness, right? The undermining of the man in general, right? But it really is done specifically through targeting the white man, right? Because they see the white man as being in power. And the white man has gotten to the point where they can't say out loud things that they really feel. But the left, they can say whatever they want about white men. And I don't think that's right. I think that white men should have the strength and the courage to speak their minds, to say what they want to say, to give the left all the smoke that they have been asking for. And that's what Trump did. And that's something that our side of the aisle should stand up for. He gave them equal rights. He treated them equally. And I'm telling you guys right now, a lot of Republicans who, happen to be white men will be asked about this, and you're going to be able to tell very quickly who is built for this conversation, who is built to actually take on the left in their radical agenda by how they respond. Because a lot of them are going to fold and cower in weakness and basically try to denounce the comments and say, well, I don't stand by that. You already know what they're going to say because they don't want to be called racist. But the thing that I love about Trump, and I'm going to say this as plainly as I can, is that he does not give a fuck. And that is one of the main reasons I support him, because those attributes is what you need in a leader. Okay? When you're talking about taking on Putin and Xi Jinping, yeah, that's what you need. You need that type of leadership. That guy that's going to go in and wreck shit. That's what you need. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into this segment here from CNN, right, of them melting down, boo-hoo-whining and crying over what Trump said.
David, what did we see? What was the point of making a whole thing about whether Kamala Harris was Indian or black when she's both, and frankly has always openly discussed that she's both? What was the point of that?
Yeah, Aaron, I'm not quite so sure what the point is. Indian, black, what Donald Trump just said, her race is irrelevant. Her gender is irrelevant. Her performance is what I want to talk about. Her positions are what I want to talk about. And he should have delved into those. He should have said, listen, when he was asked what he did for why should black Americans listen or trust him now, he got into it a bit and talked about, funding HBCUs and the First Step Act and lowest unemployment African American community. I mean, and empowerment zones, things that his administration did. Stick to the facts. Trump had a good record. The president had a good record as president with the African American community, and he should have spoken about that. Don't get down and get in these petty grievances about things that are irrelevant. When we're talking about Kamala Harris's dissent, we're not talking about the things that matter to people. Her policies. Talk about, whether she's for fracking, what that's going to mean to the people in Western Pennsylvania, whether she wants to take your guns away in states. Let's have a debate on the merits. And I would have challenged, I would have said, listen, you're journalists in this room. No one's asked her a question yet since she's been the candidate. I hope you ask her some really tough questions moving forward. I think it was a missed opportunity.
I mean,
all right, no offense to this guy, but this is what I'm talking about when I say that there are going to be a lot of so-called Republicans and conservatives who happen to be white men that are going to come out and show you that, yeah, we're not really prepared to take on the left. We're not. Because this guy is living in the ideal world, right? He's living in a world that we should be living in, right? Where our politics is only about policy and we're not talking about identity and stuff but that's not the world that we're living in, guys. I'm sorry. I wish we were living in that world. That's what I wish this race was about. But you've already seen they're not going to let it be about policy. Okay? Notice how these journalists, they had no interest in asking Trump about the assassination attempt. That should have been the first question. Mr. President, I'm glad to see that you're okay. There was an assassination attempt on you. Is there anything that you want to speak on when it comes to what happened, how you feeling, what you're going through? No, none of that. First question out the gate, were you a racist? You're a bigot. You hate blacks. That was the first question out the gate. And you think that you can push back on that question by just talking about policy? That's not the world we're living in. The left, their whole campaign is built on Kamala Harris is a black woman. Their campaign is not built on Kamala Harris is an Indian woman. Why is it that they've chosen to build her campaign on Kamala Harris is a black woman? Why have they chosen to do that? Because they know, politically speaking, there's more of an advantage for her to run as a so-called black woman. Trump saying, hey, I don't even know if she's actually black based off history, in which you guys just saw. CNN run a whole segment talking about Kamala Harris growing up as an Indian girl. That pokes at the heart of the main selling point of the Democrats. And this is why what Trump did is so important. Because the only thing they have is that Kamala Harris is a black woman, abortion. Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's basically all they got. They have nothing else besides that. So when Trump asked this question out loud, when he says something that a lot of white men in this country are afraid to say, and they shouldn't be afraid to say it, you should not be afraid to say it, because you have the right to say and to speak your mind the same way they do. Because these are the same people that have no problems calling white men who disagree with Democrats white supremacists, racists, Confederates, neo-Nazis, saying that, oh, well, you're only in your position as a white man because you're white and male privilege. They will attack you based off your race all day long. I guarantee you, this guy steps out of line. The first thing he says that's out of line, they'll say that he's a racist, right? While he's over there cowering to CNN. Oh, well, I don't want to get into that. We shouldn't be talking about that. Again, because as soon as your ass step out of line as a white man, they are going to call you a racist. And the fact that you aren't speaking your mind is weakness, right? They know it. They say, oh, well, this is weak. This is weak. We can talk about them all day. They don't even want to defend themselves. And I call bullshit on that. White men should defend themselves. And sometimes the best defense is offense. These are the same people, guys, that'll tell people like me, I'm not really black because I'm not a Democrat, right? How many times do they tell people like me, black conservatives, oh, you ain't black? You selling out for the white man. You want to be white so bad because of my political beliefs, okay? The media was silent when Joe Biden told Charlamagne tha God, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. So again, I'm trying to figure out, why is it that the media has no problems with Joe Biden telling black people that if you don't vote for me, you ain't black, but all of a sudden they got a problem with this? Why is it that all these black liberals all of a sudden have a problem with Trump saying, I don't even know if Kamala Harris is black, when these same people are the people that will take somebody's black card as soon as they don't agree with them on politics? So I don't want to hear the bullshit. I don't want to hear anything about he should be questioning her ethnicity and her skin color and her race. You guys up until this point have had no problems questioning the ethnicity or the race of people that you disagree with politically. Now all of a sudden Trump does it one time and these people want to lose their minds. But this is what they signed up for, because this is the party of people who routinely strip people of their identity if they don't agree with the Democrats and the left. So I don't want to hear nothing from these people boo-hoo whining and crying about questioning Kamala's blackness when these same people have been questioning everybody else's blackness that they don't agree with for years. My only issue with Trump's answer was not anything that he said, is what he didn't say, which is that, well, you should ask Joe Biden why Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, because he said that he picked her because she represents his diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda. So if you guys are telling me that DEI is now a slur and not a good thing, then why don't you ever ask Joe Biden to tell us why he gave Kamala such a bad label? That's the only thing that Trump could have said to make his answer better. But there was nothing wrong with his answer, and I'm glad he told the truth. We need more truth tellers, people that are not afraid to say it like it is. Because I'm telling you guys, this election is going to be a referendum on identity politics, and we can either lose cowering in fear, say, oh yeah, no, you're right, calling somebody DEI is racist, let me be careful with my language, let me be careful how I talk about Kamala, or you could just tell the truth. And if you win or lose, hey, at least you went down telling it like it is, right? But I'm telling you right now, a winning strategy is not going to be, let's soften our language, because these people are not softening their language. They'll call Trump a white supremacist in a heartbeat. They'll call him Hitler in a heartbeat. They'll say you ain't black if you don't vote for me in a heartbeat. But yet, we're not supposed to be able to attack them? Again, nobody respects that. I'm telling you right now, nobody respects that. The average person sees that as weakness. They see that as guilt. Oh, you're wrong. You believe that you're wrong because you're backing down. You're admitting that calling Kamala Harris a DEI hire is inappropriate. You're basically admitting that the left is right. The left never admits when they're wrong. The left never admits when the right is correct on any issue, because they know how to be strong. They know how to say, you know what? We don't care if we're wrong. We're still going to stand on what we believe. We don't care. That's strength. What Trump did was show that I am as strong as I've ever been, and you're not going to intimidate me. It doesn't matter if I'm white. It doesn't matter if you're black. I'm going to treat you equally. I'm going to say what's on my mind and F you if you don't like it. And that commands respect. You don't have to like it, but a lot of people respect it. All these people on screen right now, they can boohoo, whine, and cry all they want to. But they all deep down inside, they're like, damn, I kind of respect that. I respect the hell out of that. They all do. I promise you. I promise you.
There's no question, in a sense, Aisha, that's true. And David obviously is giving, his analysis as somebody, who sees the politics of this and the policy of this very differently than you do. But instead, we're actually now, and he's saying, well, she was Indian and then she turned black. Is that how we put it? So just to go back here, and I know, David, your frustration, but then we have to fact check it, which is, so back when she was running last time, did she indeed identify only as Indian heritage or not? And so back in 2019, here's what she said about being black.
I'm black.
Yes.
And I'm proud of being black.
Absolutely.
And I was born black. I will die black. And I'm proud of being black. And I'm not going to make any excuses for anybody because they don't understand.
And there's just as many interviews of Kamala Harris saying, I'm an Indian woman. Again, she is who she needs to be in the moment, right, to get them votes. That's the whole point. And see, they want to avoid that conversation. And again, this is why they always want to try to get into the muddy waters of talking about racism, boohoo-wine, and crying, instead of talking about the actual substance of the criticism, which is that Kamala Harris is a phony.
Okay.
She's
but
always
Aaron,
been a black woman. You can't hide from that.
Yeah, but I would say equally, go back and pull the tapes. Look at the Sacramento Bee, which is, I think, the paper of record in California. It touts, first Indian American senator sworn in the Senate in 2016. I mean, there are some articles out there that you can hang your hat on that says that she was Southeast Asian descent and really played that part up. And look, she's mixed.
Right.
She's
But
mixed race.
David,
She's
I mean,
both. She's
I
both.
think you
She's
agree
both.
with me when I say that she's both. Right. She's both. Right. She's
Yeah.
whatever. At any moment, I'm sure, like anybody, when you think about where you came from, sometimes you feel more one thing.
Listen,
than other things.
my
Who cares?
ancestors. Yeah, my ancestors.
Yeah, she is what she needs to be based off who she's trying to pander to. And again, that's the point. Her whole campaign is nothing but identity politics. So the left boohoo-wine and crying when Trump decides that, okay, yeah, well, let's go there. Let's talk about identity. Is she actually really black? So them boohoo-wine and cried about that. Again, it's funny to me because they made this whole campaign about identity politics. Had they not made this about identity politics, had they stuck to the policy, which they don't want to do, they desperately don't want to do, which is why we're having this conversation, this would have never happened. This would have never happened. So again, what they're really upset about, guys, is the fact that Trump is calling out Kamala Harris on the only thing that she's running on, which is that I'm a black woman. That's it. That's it. And if he can cause confusion and have people question Kamala on, again, one of the main reasons why people are supporting her, that's a W. That's a W. 100%.
Are half Italian, half Polish. I'm both.
We're not talking about ancestors. Can we just talk about how ignorant this whole conversation is?
Yeah,
this
I think
is a
we're all amazed that we're
biracial
having-
woman in America. We're
Aisha,
not
listen,
talking about ancestors
Aisha.
off of a boat. We're talking about a woman whose father was a black Jamaican man, whose mother happened to be an Indian woman. There are many people in this country who are biracial people who absolutely identify as the fullness of who they are. And the fact that you have someone who is a former president that's running for president again, that is making a mockery of the heritage of anybody is really the fine point on all of this that we should be talking about here. It is ridiculous.
Well, I will say, Aisha, I agree with you. It is ridiculous we're talking about it and not talking about Kamala Harris's record. And President Trump put himself in that position. So instead here tonight of debating her failed policies of the Biden administration, we're talking about this. And it's a distraction. It's a distraction in the American people. And I'm sure it's a distraction the American people don't want to keep talking about.
Well, again, it's just so funny because none of these people are asking the question of, well, why did this journalist ask Trump this question? She asked the question. He gave the answer. He gave the answer. And it doesn't matter what answer he gives, they're always just going to focus on, well, this is what Trump said about DEI. They're going to pivot to, oh, Trump's a bigot, he's a racist in some way. It doesn't matter what he says. And that's what people got to understand, guys. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't. These are the same people abusing racial identity politics to the extreme. They're having segregated Zoom rallies, segregated rallies. But they don't want you to talk about race, though, right? They don't want you to talk about it. Only they can talk about it. And they want to make the whole thing about race, but Republicans can't talk about race. So therefore, Republicans can't talk, okay? They don't want to talk about policy. They just want to talk about race, but Republicans can't talk about race. Again, this is what they want, right? This is what they want. So you might as well give it to them because at the end of the day, this is what it was always going to be about. It was always going to come down to this. So I'm glad that Trump said what he said now. And hey, it is what it is. I'm happy that he said it. And I guarantee you, everybody respects what he said. Even the hurt black liberal journalists that are boohoo-whining and crying about this right now, they all respect what he said, right? At the end of the day. So hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.